The dining room smelled like my mother's lamb curry, the kind she only made when she wanted something. I should have known then. I had driven 40 minutes after a 10-hour shift at the hospital, where I worked as an administrative coordinator in the billing department. Not glamorous, but it was mine. A salary I had clawed for, a small studio apartment I had furnished piece by piece, a life I was quietly and carefully building at 28 years old. I had just enrolled in an online MBA program. I had a savings account that was finally beginning to look like something real. I had plans, small ones maybe, but they were mine, and I had watered them like plants in a window that didn't get quite enough sun. But the curry was on the stove, and my mother was smiling too wide, and my father had his hands folded on the table like a man about to deliver a verdict he had already written. My brother Cameron sat at the head of the table, which had always quietly infuriated me, since it was our parents' house, not his, but no one ever said anything about that either. He was 34, broad-shouldered, perpetually confident, the kind of man who moved through life as though the current had always been designed to carry him forward. His wife Sana sat beside him, glowing faintly, her hand resting on the barely there curve of her stomach with the practiced serenity of a woman who already knew the room would rearrange itself around her news. Their 4 children were already fed and parked in front of the television. I had brought them chocolates, as I always did, because I was the aunt who showed up, the aunt who remembered, the aunt who had become, without anyone formally deciding it, the family's, of emotional glue and unpaid labor, wrapped in one quietly exhausted person. "We're expecting again," Cameron said, setting down his fork with theatrical timing. "Number 5. My mother gasped with joy. My father nodded slowly, proudly. Sana smiled like a painting, and then my mother turned to me, not to congratulate them, not to pass the bread, but with that specific look she reserved for announcements that had already been decided without me. "Beta," she said gently, "we were thinking you could move back home. To help." Not a question. Never a question. I moved back on a Sunday. It took me 3 trips in my small car to carry the life I had built back into the room I had once been, so desperate to leave. My MBA textbooks went on the same shelf where my childhood trophies gathered dust. My professional clothes hung in a wardrobe that still smelled faintly of the girl I used to be. I sat on the edge of my old bed that night and told myself it was temporary. 6 months, maybe 7, until the baby came, until Sana recovered, until everyone found their footing. I was good at telling myself things. The baby arrived in March. A boy. They named him Rayan, and he was beautiful, and for exactly 4 days I allowed myself to feel the uncomplicated warmth of a new life in the house. Then the structure revealed itself. I was up at 5:30 every morning before anyone else, because Rayan woke at 5, and Sana did not. I changed him, fed him, rocked him through the gray pre-dawn quiet, while the rest of the house slept. Then I woke the 4 older children, made their breakfasts, packed their bags, and walked them to the school van. Then I came back and cleaned the kitchen, started laundry, and prepared lunch, because Sana was resting and my mother's knees were bad, and Kamran left for work at 7:30, like a man with no awareness that a household existed behind him. My own job, the one I had fought for, the one with the salary and the small dignities, I had reduced to part-time. My manager had been kind about it. I had not told her the real reason. I was ashamed in a way I could not yet name. The evenings were no softer. Dinner for 7, dishes, homework supervision, bath time for the little ones, another feed for Rayan. By 9 o'clock I was so tired my hands trembled slightly when I poured myself a glass of water. No one noticed. Or perhaps more accurately, no one mentioned it. Sana called me efficient. My mother called me a blessing. Kamran occasionally looked up from his phone and said, "Thanks, Yar," the way you thank a taxi driver. I was not a daughter in that house anymore. I was not even a person, really. I was a system. And systems are not thanked. They are simply expected to run. It was a Tuesday in October when I found out what I actually was to them. Not through a confession, not through a fight, but through a conversation I was never meant to hear. The kind that changes the temperature of everything that came before it, so that when you look back, even the good memories feel slightly rewritten. I had come home early from my part-time shift, something I rarely did. The house was quieter than usual. Rayan was napping. The older children were at school. I slipped off my shoes at the door out of habit, moving softly, the way you learn to move in a house full of sleeping children. And I heard my mother and Sana talking in the kitchen, not arguing. Laughing, actually, the relaxed, loose laughter of two women who believed themselves completely alone. I stood in the hallway and I listened. Sana was saying that her own sister had offered to help after the baby, had even offered to come stay for a month, but that it had been so easy to redirect that offer, because, and here her voice dropped into something almost fond, almost admiring. Ma convinced her so quickly, didn't she? Nadia doesn't know how to say no to family guilt. She never has. My mother laughed, not cruelly, exactly, but comfortably. So way you laugh about something that has always worked in your favor. She's a good girl, my mother said. She just needs to feel needed. I stood there in the hallway in my work clothes with my bag still on my shoulder, and I felt something shift inside me. Not break, not shatter, but realign. The way a bone does when it finally accepts it has been set wrong for years. They had not asked me out of necessity. They had chosen me because I was the path of least resistance, because my guilt was a reliable tool, because my love had always been a thing they could spend without depositing anything back. I went to my room. I sat on my bed. I did not cry, which surprised me. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into my MBA portal for the first time in 6 weeks, and read the message from my professor asking if I was still enrolled. I typed back, yes. I'm still here. It was the first true thing I had said in months. I did not leave loudly. That was never my style. I left the way I had always worked, quietly, thoroughly, without making a scene that anyone could dismiss or reframe. I had spent years being the person who absorbed chaos so others wouldn't have to feel it. For once, I decided to let the chaos land exactly where it belonged. The first thing I did was re-enroll full-time in my MBA program. I told no one. I simply began studying after midnight, when the house was asleep. My screen brightness turned low. My ambition finally permitted to take up space again. My professor, Dr. Hina Baig, became the first person in months who spoke to me like someone with a future worth investing in. That alone was enough to keep me going. The second thing I did was call my old manager at the hospital. She had kept my position quietly open, she admitted, because she had never believed I truly wanted to leave. She was right. I negotiated not just my old role back, but a slight promotion, a title change I had been passed, and over for twice, which she now offered without me even asking. I accepted, told her I needed 3 weeks, and began planning the rest. I found a small apartment, 20 minutes from the hospital. Nicer than my old studio, with a window that caught the morning light in a way that made me feel, the first time I stood in it, like I was being welcomed back to myself. I signed the lease on a Wednesday, and told no one in my family until the following Sunday. I chose dinner. I chose my mother's table, the same one where this had all begun. I waited until the food was served and the children were settled, and Cameron was mid-sentence about something that didn't matter, and I said, calmly, that I would be moving out at the end of the month. The silence was profound. My mother looked at Sana. Sana looked at Cameron. Cameron looked at me with the expression of a man who has just discovered that the infrastructure he ignored was actually load-bearing. I did not argue. I did not explain myself beyond what was necessary. I had rehearsed calm the way they had rehearsed their guilt. The sweetest revenge was simply this: becoming someone they could no longer afford to take for granted.